Welcome to the Independence Project. We are in the community once again of Canaries, and we're not far from the river, the main river that goes through Canaries, and we are at Tony's place. And we thank Tony for giving us the opportunity to be here to enjoy the cool atmosphere and to listen to the sounds of the river right next to us. And we're joined by Avalon Joseph well, a few things. We know you. We initially got to know you as a promoter, as a youth leader, and recently we got to see you as a member of the Green Party, Avalon.
Yes.
How's it going?
Yes. Well, again, but everything is been going good, you know. I've been on point and sticking to the mission, you know what it is.
Now, I always knew, Avalon, that you've been actively involved in the youth movement in Canaries, and you became the president of the Youth and Sports Council here as well. What is it that drove you to be so actively involved in the youth movement in Canaries?
Well, I think me originally being from Canaries, knowing how I grew up and what potential that lies in the community, even in myself as an example, you know, so that is one of the things, you know, that kind of to make me capture, you know, that source of talent, you know, that wealth.
Well, what is it you wanted to achieve? What is it that you thought that the youth in Canaries needed that you wanted to deliver on?
Well, most and foremost, I think it has to do more with the coming together, the unity, you know. The coming together and understanding that everybody's different, everybody has different talent, and together, you know, we could achieve, you know, that whole big cohesive, you know, oneness that we're looking for, you know, where everybody benefits.
Mm-hmm. What is in Canaries that stood out for you among the youth? What were you most, I know there were the challenges, but what were you most impressed with in terms of the vibe that you were getting from Canaries youth?
Well, I'm talking me being a youth of Canaries as well. Yeah, you know, I mean, just, you know, the security, you know, growing up here, we're secured. You know, you find kids, you know, like one go say, roaming the streets, and it's a tight-knit community coming up the river, a group of us, you know, cooking food, catching crayfish, looking for VO, you know. I mean, it's that, you know, don't have, you know, not, you know, a negative care of what's happening in the world, but that freedom, that, you know, and that is something the world needs right now, as you could see.
I suppose, yeah, and the other thing too that we know, there's a lot of talent coming from this community, both sporting and culturally and entertainment as well. And you were involved in that. What drove you to doing promotions in Canaries?
Well, I always saw, again, it's my history here, you know. I grew up knowing Abate and seeing the amount of vehicles parked all on the roadside everywhere. You know, I grew up actually in the band room of Merrymakers. These guys, I grew up hearing these guys. I was actually, you know, living in that area, in that same apartment. You know, so Canaries has always had that vibrant culture. And I think Canaries have always contributed to St. Lucian culture with Florida Marquis and, you know, Jashim, you know, the list just goes on and on and on and on, way before any other segment existed. You know, so, and I think, you know, the neglect that has been, you know, given deliberately, I would say, because some place cannot be so rich. You have Black Hat, you have football, we're always in finals, we're always semi-finals, we win in finals. And yet, you know, right now, the national football team, the ladies under 20, there is about 6 or how many kids from Canaries on that team, or training for the national team. So you know,
what is going wrong? Because as you mentioned a few names, the Florida Marquis and so on, and Itation. There was always this activity, and you're personally, well, intimately connected to Merrymakers and so on. At the moment, we don't have any nationally recognized bands from this community. What has gone wrong? Again,
I think it's a problem where you find. I have to be very careful how I say that, because you know, not to be politically correct, you know, but it goes back to not passing things down, you know, and that's just what, you know, like when you're doing something in the community, it has to be for the community, and it has to be something that you're willing to pass down, and it's a generational thing, and it's something that lives on. But you know, it's like, you know, and it's like because one person or two people, or you know.
So is there a role there? Because one of the things, even for the Denver segment, I keep stressing is that you've had some musicians who come from that community who've given the country a national profile. Same as happened with Canaries in terms of Merrymakers, Itation and so on. But then if you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm almost sure that there is no school of music in Canaries.
No,
to
there
sustain
isn't.
it.
No, exactly. No, but in the first place, there isn't no school of cannabis to even, start it. Where somebody want to say, oh, you know what, I want to go into music so I could go there to learn this, or whether stage presentation, whether whatever comes with it, the old, theatric aspect of it, but it comes naturally, and that's what I'm saying. A community like Canneries, like we got cable in the late 90s, and like we were more to Canneries was like an island on an island. Take out the road network in the late 90s again, so people, the history used to have to go to Soufrière on boats or walk, or we wasn't connected to St. Lucia. To me, that's where I see the whole neglect comes from. And I could remember former Prime Minister, the forefather of St. Lucia, as they would say, no disrespect, so used to consider it as Siberia. That's to show you how far apart Canneries itself was from the whole scope of St. Lucia.
But in spite of that, Canneries and Canneries people
have always thrived and survived. We have one of the highest rates of remittances. We have people who go out there and who look after there. We have ambitious people in the community, And what really bothers me sometimes is knowing that we're right next to the main tourist attraction, which is the sulfur springs and volcanoes and pitons. And we always get that, but both by land and sea, nothing stops because there's nothing in place. And we've been presenting to the powers that be either or, but they have refused simply because of the neglect and thinking that if there's a project to go on in $20 million available, it's not like Canneries they want to do it. There's probably some place in Rosillet that needs it, or not, sorry to say, but some other place, it's sickening sometimes.
I've always been fascinated. I've stood by the bridge in Canneries, and I've seen on a cruise ship day a lot of buses just driving through. They probably stop for 30 seconds. Let's give them a minute. Yeah. But they keep going, and they're not stopping in the community. And the same, as you mentioned, boats just fly past, but there's no stop. Like is there a jetty now?
Yeah, well, the jetty was, a few renovations was done to it a while back.
Right, but you need a modern jetty, definitely, and so on.
Yeah.
And so it always bothered me that there was all this traffic going through, but it wasn't benefiting the community. As a young person growing up, I suppose you viewed it the same way?
I've always seen it like that. And again, that's why I've been so involved in making things happen in the community, And there are a lot of things that I said we have presented that could have people to come to Canneries and stop in Canneries like it has been traditionally. With all these vehicles, as I mentioned with Abate, and we used to have Free Up Friday at Moon River, and the shows jazz. It took us 5 years going up and down to get jazz right here in Canneries. The concept was, but there's jazz in Soufrière. So like we don't need it in Canneries, but no, we want to do our thing. We can do it.
Avalon, I was just about getting ready to your decision recently to get into elective politics. We know you had been involved in the community, you had done quite a bit, you understood the issues, the challenges, and especially from a youth perspective, somebody who's in the creative industries and so on. So why did you decide and make that decision? What triggered that decision to, let me just get into this thing, and you chose the Green Party? Yeah,
well, the reason getting into the Green Party, number one, it was a different thing. It was more or less a new thing, even in the sense of a party, which is the NGP. And it was me just being, tired of experiencing whether UWP or SLP, nothing is going on in Canneries, nothing is going on, no matter who's in power, So it was like, you know what, let me, I think I could do it, let me, sacrifice myself if I have to.
What about the Green Party that appealed to you?
The ideologies, the whole natural aspect of it, the earth, the agriculture being the number one, component of, generating, movement and jobs and stuff like that. The push for the decriminalization, of the cannabis and legalization totally, and industries and stuff like that. That's the new way of thinking. That's the way we could see, a lot of communities and countries are heading towards. Why are we holding ourselves back? Let us get the expertise, let us do the job and create, the industries that needs to be created.
Did the party at the time get, we knew the Green Party and especially the leader for his work in trying to decriminalize cannabis and so on. Did that kind of define the party initially? Because I know you have, when I listened to your launch, there was some pretty serious positive messages, but somehow the other people seem to think of the Green Party as the party pushing for the decriminalization.
Yeah, I think it's because one of the contributing, factors to that is because, Mr. DeCaris, of course, and that's why I have so much respect and admiration for this gentleman right there, the definition of consistency, persistence, you know, until you bear fruits, you know. So I was pleased to work with him as the leader of the party, and I think that's what people saw, that's what they chose to see, because, you know, we spoke about a lot of things that would have, or that is in the, you know, beneficial factor of everybody, but, you know, people just choose to see, you know, the marijuana, and I can't blame nobody for that, you know.
Now, when you became part of the party, what is it that you wanted to bring specifically? What is the key message that you had for Mr. DeCaires and for the Green Party that you wanted to definitely represent?
Well, of course, me being the representative for Canaries and Slurry, my focus is Canaries and Slurry. And again, me knowing the rich talent and what, you know, that could happen in this constituency and community especially, I really think that, you know, I have a lot to bring to the table, and he was willing to listen, to work with me, like many others have, you know, rejected and neglected, you know. So it's a pleasure, and it was a pleasure. You know.
What is that experience for you? Because this would have been your first time campaigning.
Yeah, well, I've actually done campaigning for both parties, you know, because I'm pretty involved in my, you know, whoever my representative, you know, is, you know, I want to know, you know. So I've always been willing to work with whoever I think at the time best represents or is best suitable or best can get the job executed, you know. So it wasn't a new thing for me. It was a new thing in the sense of me being, it's my campaign now. I'm campaigning for myself, you know. But I enjoyed the experience, you know. A lot of things I wanted to talk about, I had the platform, so I appreciated that.
But you didn't seem to get results when you campaigned for the two previous parties you mentioned. What is it that, weren't they hearing you, or what is it that prevented them from fulfilling your vision?
I think it's the mentality, the mindset, you know. The mindset that, you know, something could only happen if someone on the outside is doing it or someone from foreign is coming to do it. Like the mindset that it's difficult to get someone amongst us that could step up or that could carry that mantle, or, you know, it's like you know, it's just like a brush off, you know, not taking serious, you know, the nature of it. You know, I think it's just a mindset, and I don't know, I can't explain it, to be honest with you.
Was this the right time for the Green Party? Because considering how we know how the two parties system operates, last time it was Kenny must go, this time it was Alan must go. So there was this back and forth in terms of who must go, and so there was that major national distraction with Alan must go at this time around. Was that a good time for the Green Party to come in, or you think that it could have been a more opportune time either earlier or later on?
Well, whatever time anything starts, for me is always, you know, the time it starts is the time it starts, you know. So for me, as we got started, you know, and it's always going to be like that, you know. I bet maybe next 5 years, as I said, it would be Philip JPM must go, or the next Prime Minister, it was Kenny before, you know. So I believe it's when you think you're ready. I know I was ready, you know, so I think the time was right, you know, so I'll do it again.
So is the party still very active at this point? I know the elections and the party didn't do too well, but third parties generally don't do too well.
Yeah, you know how people are in their labor and flower thing. It's kind of like a traditional thing, you know, but we still communicate. We do our WhatsApp meetings. We have our meetings on Sundays sometimes, you know, in person, you know. But the Green Party is here to stay, man. I mean, even though, you know, sometimes the results may seem, you know, bad or not favorable, but to me that's not how I see it. You know, I see, again, the message is out there, you know. So maybe, you know, the UWP could take what we have to say and take it into consideration. The SLP could do the same, whichever forms the government. But at least the words of shifting something, you could see something happening, you know.
We are talking about it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We know Mr. Pierre had promised an inclusive government. He was reaching out. Did he reach out? Has he involved the Green Party?
Well, I know, as I said, presently I think he's in talks with Mr. DeCaires. I think it's in regards to the decriminalization and whatever way around that. But as the Green Party, I honestly thought maybe he would have had even Mr. DeCaires or Dr. Gilbert for Centros. I'm not even speaking on behalf of myself, you know, as a senator or something like that. If we're trying to be inclusive, you know, because Green Party, the people I work with, there's a lot that they could bring to the table, you know, and even though they're not in the position or we're not in the position, there's a lot of, you know, things that, you know, we could make happen. You know. And
Mr. DeCaires has a very strong background in agriculture as well, so that could have been valuable.
You know, and of course the main, you know, ideology of the Green Party is, you have to be able to feed yourself, especially if you want to be a nation, an independent community. You have to, food and water is important.
As a youth leader here, what is your understanding of the youth economy, and what is it that you would like to see it do for youth?
Well, in Canaries, I'll be serious and quite frank with you. And it goes again back at my experience and me, and there's this lady in Canaries, I know you know, Mrs. Edwards. The pivotal part that just these two individuals, with many other more, there is a lot of individuals in Canaries who's for the good of Canaries and would want to come together and get things done, and we're willing to, but time after time we have presented remedies and solutions in things that could happen in Canaries that would generate. And when you're talking about economy wise, we're right next, as I said, to the main tourist attractions, Sulphur Springs, Peters. Every day people pass through us. Tours, both by land and by sea. What do we have here? And they know that. We're presenting, but again, it's that stereotypical thinking of Canaries, Siberia, we don't need that, like, who are we, and that's all I get. That's the feedback I get. There are people out there who genuinely care and willing to help. You get that. I've done a lot of events in Canaries where the idea is to bring people down where the vendors would vend and make money. The basic guy selling his job and his thing would make money, but you don't get that getting the support, and that I couldn't understand, to be honest with you, especially when you have people bringing things to the table, not solely depending on government to do things for them. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's the connection.
We've always heard that Canaries is very active politically, and it's divisive is the word as well.
Yeah.
Politics divides the community. The community gets along pretty well, but there's always that division, that political division, and even sometimes the agencies in the community that's supposed to drive are sometimes more affiliated to the ruling party and so on. How much does that affect progress in the community? Well,
I wouldn't call it the word you used a while ago, division. Yeah, divisive. I would use that's a plague, my bad. Honestly, like it is, because somebody would genuinely not sign a paper if they have to. Just because they're not of the same political ideology and affiliate. When it benefits to, like, say for example, if I'm Labour or I'm Flabo, Green Party is not too much in the fight, but the traditional ones, and like people wouldn't support or wouldn't come or wouldn't, like, you know what I'm saying? Like people wouldn't even want to board your bus if you're a Flabo or Labour or that kind of thing, or even come to your shop, or so you could see, plain and front that this is just tearing the people apart.
How do we deal with that?
Well, everybody is different in their own ways, and that's where the acceptance comes. I mean, I have to accept your opinion, your choice that you made, but can we look past that? I've had experience where, because I disagree with somebody on certain points, if I'm hosting an event and he's doing the prayers or whatever, he wouldn't do it just because, so people go so far. How far can we look past that? And to be honest with you, it's like not very far. And that's generally too, across, the island.
Is that kind of attitude filtering to the youth? Do the youth inheriting and also demonstrating? And
it's a sad thing to say these are the only things they pass down and the youth inherit. Something that wouldn't progress them or is progressive to them. The real thing that is to be passed down that would, alleviate, one's being or something. They don't pass it down, the knowledge. They don't, so it does because you hear, so imagine the young people will vote for a particular party just because that's what their mother are or is or father. And sometimes your mother and your father can't even give you a start. You saw how these, political parties played football with them. So why are you willing to, I'm not telling you don't honor your mother and father, but come on, think for yourself. You can't give an account when you face the Almighty for anybody, so you still have to think for yourself. You've
been a youth leader, and so you've engaged the youth quite a bit, and I'm sure those issues have come up. Is it is it difficult to get them to understand? Are youth in canneries having that kind of a dialogue to have a different mindset to how they approach development in canneries?
Well, again, it's just what's been passed down, and it is a bit difficult, on all levels, and because people are used to certain things, and it's hard to break the chain and break the norm and come with something different, the resistance you would get with that, but the youth now, you could see more so that their eyes are opening and people are beginning to realize and see what's going on now. If they're ready for the change, I mean, it's up to them.
Mm-hmm. And I know we had mentioned culture earlier on as well. You get a sense too that it's something that they're willing to step up, because you've had a strong tradition in that area as well.
Yeah. I mean, now we have a lot of young guys into the music, and there is nothing to channel that to. No studio, no platform. So I see it's the football the same way. We, religiously on a playing field every day. So you could see it's vibrant, but how do we materialize that? How do we take that from the raw energy to the fine product? It's what the difficulty is in, the discipline, the understanding that, listen, we're not in the frame of mind of asking for jobs or career. We are our own jobs. Your talent, you're singing, you're acting, you're dancing. You could feed yourself off of that, practice, train. The same way you will give an employer 8 hours, 9 hours, give yourself some hours to, fine tune your art, work at it. But you need these centers and these professionals to mentor. You need people in place scouting, you need that.
You have some national profile now with your involvement in the Green Party, and like you say, you're going to continue your involvement in it. Yeah. How do you plan to leverage that to keep advancing those issues, not just in canneries, but nationally? Yeah,
well, again, the platform. So, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. I believe whatever issue comes out, if it's a pressing or burning issue, if it's something that needs discussing, I will make a video, I'll give it my time, I will air it, So, whenever I'm called upon, even to do things like that, the interviews, I'm ready. So for me, it's always saying it as is, because sometimes you get the political theatric where you only hear it around election season. But when election season finish, you hear a different set of talk now, and it just changes until election comes again. But we need to keep that dialogue and keep following up and keep checking up. We need that,
Now, you mentioned earlier on remittances, and it's pretty active in canneries. Is there a connection between canneries youth and the second generation youth who are growing up in the UK and so on? Are they themselves connecting and expressing an interest in what's happening in their community?
Of course. I would say, canneries has had that direct connect link with especially the UK, And even like now, you have a lot of kids, young people from canneries going to England. So there's always been, we had our there's a Canneries UK Association. One of the ambulances initially was donated, or the money came up with from the UK Association in England. But I need all these things need reactivating, revamping, and you need serious people on board to make it fruitful, not just talk.
Because I'm thinking that it would be a very good link to have the youth in canneries and the youth in the UK, because there's obviously educational opportunities, economic opportunities, but also the opportunities to learn from each other.
Yeah, I don't think there is a professional original connection like that, but I think in just basically keeping in touch and having that connection exist. But that is a brilliant suggestion, what you're saying, and I think it's something that I personally would look into, in doing.
Yeah. Now, the youth, I don't know how involved you are with the National Youth Council, but they've been struggling for over 3 decades now to get a youth policy in place. I don't know if the Green Party had articulated any thoughts on that, but what's your thinking of a 3-decade delay in
well,
policy?
See, for me, I was active, in the youth, the NYC. I was from a long time, maybe up until 5 years ago or something like that. I stopped going to meetings and stuff like that. Because what I realized is that has just been used as a stepping stone. So a lot of people who come to the NYC don't come with the youth at heart. They come to make that a pivot to their next agenda, as to maybe getting into the wider range of politics or into some position, or the perks that come with it, the traveling, or the whole air about being president or secretary of a national organization, but the fruitfulness of it, I think, the and it's troubling, when you have national organizations like that not being able to. I mean, there's no example in that, for anybody, not just the youth.
So are the youth ought to be a little more vigilant in the selection of the next president, because we know the elections are coming and the General Assembly coming up pretty soon, that there needs to be probably a different approach to how you select the next president.
I think the approach definitely has to be different. I think every Youth and Sports Council, and I was president of the Youth and Sports Council, Canaries Youth and Sports Council at one point. And I could tell you, them things is just names, it's just nice names, and, like this is a Youth and Sports Council. But, as a Youth and Sports Council, you would make proposals and things to the higher beings, the government, and, it's just crazy, and it's just crazy, So it's a sad thing, I would say, it's a sad thing that youth, the strength of a nation, is being drained like that and sucked upon like that. It's a very sad thing.
So every 5 years, politicians get to approach youth and pledge to do differently. Should youth have a different approach now to engaging politicians when it comes to campaigning, in terms of what they're promising to give them? Because I remember asking somebody from NYC, you're pushing the campaign to vote, getting youth out to vote. What are the youth getting in return? And
that's all it's been used for. As I said, a political arm for whichever party that wants to put whichever operatives in position to do so. And I think I wouldn't blame anybody else, not that I'm casting blames, but especially and particularly on the youth. You need to wake up, you need to wise up. We have some intelligent young people, genuine young people. Create these movements independently. Challenge these people. Let it be something that, the same way they have general elections, let the general council be chosen that way. So when we have general elections, there's a lot of things that you vote for on that day. So everybody would cast a vote. So you'll have different representative and nominations from different people, from different communities. Not just, it's always within a small clique and a tight knit, and it's passed down. These things are sad, man.
So I was trying to get you clear on the last time that they had a General Assembly. It was almost like a political campaign. There were two teams, two sides.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of that, or you prefer a different approach to selecting an executive for the NYC?
Yeah, I think it should be done with automatically the village council, Youth and Sports Council representative from every community is supposed to form that national board. You know what I'm saying? So you have from Jacmel, you have from Canaries, you have from Soufrière, you have from Fossé Jacques, you have from, it's supposed to be a general thing. Because, when it keeps staying in that small niche, you only get, everything is more in Castries or, maybe Vieux Fort or Grosley. These out districts are left out most of the time.
So that is still an issue in terms of, in spite of the technology and efforts to decentralize, that there's still a heavy focus on the North, Castries and Vieux Fort?
I would say so. I mean, even in regards to projects and in getting the info out there. I mean, not everybody on Facebook, not everybody on,
There's still a divide between North, South, and the other communities on the West Coast, on the East Coast. Are you still feeling that divide, that neglect? Well,
as we said a while ago, I think a little bit the technology has bridged it a little bit. People could keep in touch more, and it's more able for everybody to do so. But the physical component of it, where, as I said, the information, how is it disseminated? When you put it on Facebook, it's not everybody that it gets to, no matter how much you may think that everybody's on Facebook. There are people you really need to come to, the different approaches for different communities. It's not a one-size-fits-all, So I think there is that, of course, still, but I think strides have been made in, the youths coming together and wanting to see, some difference.
Talk to us about some of the encouraging things that you've seen when you engage youth and you think that things can change.
Well, I think one of the things that has stood out for me more is the belief that, the youth are beginning to have in them so that they could make it, or because you're starting to get more examples of that around now and starting to see how far you could get with this and how far you could get. So whatever you're doing, you may think of it as recreational, but it could get you so very far. So just try to be professional, try to watch what you say and be, discreet and that kind of stuff, Because gone are the days when, you'd have to be a superstar and you'd have to travel or something like that. You could be right in your community by the river right there and, you have the world at your fingertips,
So it certainly looks, and I suppose with the your focus on the Green Party as well, that that the Green Party too has its own objective, its own mandate for youth development as well.
Exactly, and that is really and truly to engage the youth. Not us making decisions on their behalf, but actually engaging them, and not just engaging them, listening to them, and put them in the positions where they could execute, give them the necessary funds or equipments or whatever they need. That's what they need. Give it to them.
And even at this moment, obviously COVID is impacting the world. Obviously the youth are being affected. What are the opportunities that you see being created for youth to seize the moment to advance themselves?
More technological, we need to get our youth into, developing, apps and websites and creating, the online, marketing and tutoring and, all these kind of stuff, I think there's a wide range of opportunities right there. There's a lot of people who is not versed in that field, create little agencies that could attend to these people, needs and wants in that particular aspect, because we can't leave them out, so I think I see a lot of opportunity there.
And so you'd encourage the youth to certainly, and I think you've stressed it a couple of times, that the youth need to empower themselves.
Yes, of course,
They need to be awake and aware.
And let us not forget, let us take out the derogatory connotation towards farming.
Avalon, it's been quite an interesting year for you and youth, especially with where we had COVID, which obviously, as you've just mentioned, showed youth there's certainly a different path, different direction that they can, move into, capitalizing on what's going on. But also for you, you had a very interesting year as somebody who got involved in the active part of politics and so on. It's quite a journey. You got lessons. Moving forward, what are the things that you think you've learned in this experience that you'll try to avoid moving forward?
Well, I am such an optimistic person, I'm not saying that there wasn't anything that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, or things that would have happened differently or better now that I have the experience and knowing what it was. But I just outright just be so thankful for, all that I took in regards to how to, connect with people, how to, just go about the place and just be free in expressing, your views, your opinion, how you think it would be better, if, what you say, people would look into it, because it's really something that is, interesting and important that you do, because, we have the people at heart, we have the community at heart, we're not just thinking of ourselves, we're thinking of everybody, and everybody could get a piece of the pie, so there is no reason to be greedy, there is no reason to be selfish, if we share, if we help, if we teach, everybody would be better off,
Avalon, we appreciate the time you've given us to speak with you right here at Tony's place in the Heights of Canaries.
It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
And we look forward to engaging you again. We've spoken to you on so many different occasions, and we look forward to having continued conversations
again, with you. I never get weary of it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, you're welcome.